It, it is absolutely wonderful to welcome everyone to the new school year. As you can see from behind me, I'm sitting down by the river. The storm has blown away and nothing but sunshine here in Irvington. As I stated in my welcome back letter, this year's opening is going to be markedly different than that which any of us have experienced in our careers. There are more questions, more uncertainty than we could ever have imagined just 1 year ago. In many ways, this is like the first day of school for all of us. Not just the first day of this year, but the first day we have ever stepped foot in a school as either students or professionals. This experience will introduce newfound empathy for kindergarten students or those who transfer into a new district at any grade level. So much has changed and more will change as we find our way to operate this school year and simply come to the new terms of how we are going to do school. I understand that there's a lot of anxiety. Please know that I really do get it. From reviewing the data from the staff reopening survey, it is clear that we are all at different places on the spectrum of comfort and readiness. This is to be expected because of the countless challenges that are before us. However, please be assured that the administrative team, that I am 100% committed to supporting you professionally and personally. When thinking of the complexities that we will all navigate, I have to reiterate that which I've said to you before. We will take our time and understand that all of the new procedures and approaches to instruction will not come perfectly from day one. This is an expectation that I and our principals will manage and consistently reinforce with our parent community and the broader school community. We will convey that our top priority is to create safe spaces for students and staff to learn and work and to build community. The creation of safe spaces is a priority that is owned by the administration, but clearly necessitates your feedback and observations. Here, our collaboration and communication will be essential. Your thinking is valued and will be sought on an ongoing basis. Then, when thinking of building community, we'll look to you to foster relationship and support students through the transition in our return to school. Our theme this year is togetherness. We'll find our way through the year, one step at a time, together. Together as a school family, together we'll process the challenges and identify the solutions. Together, we'll support every student socially, emotionally, and academically. Together, we will support each other through tough times, help with technology glitches, help to identify much needed patience and resiliency. And then we will share in our accomplishments and those of our fine students. Alone, we would have a rough year, a trying year, but together we will be unified in our goals and our commitment to every student every day. To start the year, if there is something that we need to do and do well, it is to support and care for our students and others. We have to help our students feel welcome and cared for. They need to feel safe, need to interact with peers, and begin to feel a sense of belonging in our school community. They need to know that we're here for them, and they need to know that they are loved. The sense of belonging begins with this care, our compassion, and the interest that you will display in every student, regardless of the mode of instruction in which our students are engaged. When I think about our priorities for the school year, our overarching goals as a district, they are aligned with the realities of our time. This year we'll have 3 goals as a district that will link to the work of each school and department. First, we will focus on developing a comprehensive SEL program that is aligned and developmentally appropriate. In partnering with CASEL, we'll undergo a comprehensive process that will engage you in this work. We will work together to outline our future experiences, all while honoring the great things that are currently a part of the fabric of each school. Then, a critical area of focus will be on diversity, equity, and inclusion, with a particular focus on our Black, Indigenous people of color, BIPOC. Our work on this front is something that I ask you to embrace, as it will have an immediate impact on the lives of our students and their families, and will create opportunities for students to have equitable access to the programs and experiences that can help them achieve their fullest potential. We will also appropriately focus on assessment. This work is so timely, as today more than ever, we need to be able to answer the question, how are we doing? This will require a new look at data use, its analysis, and how to collect information on student growth and achievement, then how to make good sense of it, and continue to review the effectiveness of our programs and the experiences that we afford our students. So when we think of these goals, they all come back to the need to focus on how we are meeting our students' needs, supporting them on their journey through school, and making sure that our schools do not, the district does not, impede one's access to all that they deserve. While this year will start differently, we will still have many moments to celebrate our students' accomplishments. Surely there will be moments of challenge as we sort through our new reality. But in the end, we will succeed because of the strength of our school community and the dedication of each and every staff member in our district family. Yes, we will do this together. I would like to thank those of you who gave of your time to come to work over the summer to ready our schools and create the necessary systems to support a safe, successful reopening to the school year. Together, we are an incredible team that will overcome the uncertainties that are before us, and we will make this an amazing year for our students and, of course, each other. I want to give accolades to Gary and all of the custodians and facility staff this year more than ever for always rising to the occasion to ready the buildings and grounds for the new year. To our clerical team and support staff for their tireless dedication in keeping us organized and prepared, and to the top administrative team around for their continued leadership. A special thanks to Mary and Carol for their strength, partnership, and dedication. They have gone above and beyond what anyone could have asked for to make sure we are as ready as any school district can be. This year, I have been energized by our dynamic new colleagues who I would like to now introduce to you. In the PPS department, we have a new assistant director, Michelle O'Brien. So welcome, Michelle. A new director of PE Health and Athletics, John Bonamano. Welcome, John. At Dow's Lane, a new assistant principal, Liza Greenspan. Now, I would like to ask Jay to promote Juliet and Matt to welcome our new staff members and colleagues at the high school.
Good morning, and can you hear us?
Yes, go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. We are very excited to share that on campus first, we have Julie Austin, our new campus social worker this year. So welcome, Julie. At the high school, we have Kristen Clancy, art teacher and project Lead the Way teacher. We have Kyle DeBatte, our new school counselor at the high school. Melissa Gasovic, a new English teacher at the high school. Kathy Hayes in the French department, French teacher. We have Lila Katz, a new Latin teacher. And we also have Suzanne Dolgetta, who is a new teacher aide. She moved from Dow's Lane, and we are excited to have her at the high school this year. And Patricia Niera, who was at the middle school last year, and we are excited to have as a teacher's assistant with us at the high school this year.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Juliet and Matt. Let's, Jay, now please promote David Sotile and Allison.
Morning, everybody. Welcome back. I hope everyone's feeling well. Looking forward to getting back together here. It's good to see so many faces already today, and looking so forward to seeing many, many more. We have 4 new staff members, 2 new and 2 joining us from elsewhere in the district. So I'll introduce the first 2, and that is in our world language department, teaching Spanish will be Laura Gardner, new to the district. Welcome, Laura. And joining us from Main Street School is our school nurse, Yvonne Haley. Welcome, Yvonne. And with that, I'll hand it over to Miss Daly.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's wonderful to see everyone returning to our campus this morning. I am happy to introduce 2 new IMS colleagues from Main Street School. We are delighted to welcome Michelle Griffin, who will be teaching 6th grade ELA and social studies. Welcome, Michelle. We are also excited to have a new staff member to our district. That's Ashley Pandisha, who will be teaching our middle school VIP program. Welcome, Ashley. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, David and Allison. Joyce, if you could introduce our new friends at Main Street, please.
Good morning, everybody. It certainly feels incredibly different sitting in my office and talking to a computer screen that has Dr. Harrison, Miss Ellis, and Miss Stein looking at me. I wish that I had an opportunity to see all of your faces looking back at me in the campus theater. I hope that you had a chance to rest and recharge over the summer. I think that Chris's message about togetherness is one that you'll hear a lot over the next 3 days and across the year. Because really we are the support for one another in so many ways to make sure that we're okay as we head into the school year, and then that we're ready and able to support all of our students as they enter our remote world next week, and then they come join us in the classroom in the weeks to come. So I'm really excited to welcome staff members. So Stephanie Cambereri is a new special education teacher at Main Street School. Virginia Diamond is our new school nurse. Sarah Katz is a new 4th grade teacher. Laura LaFaro will be joining us as a teacher aide. Mary Saldana will be joining us as a teacher aide. Staff members moving to Main Street School from other buildings. Samantha Clewell is coming to us from Dow's Lane. Floriana Legidovic is coming to us from Dow's Lane. Chris Lividini is coming to us from Dow's Lane. And Carol DiCarlo is coming to us from the middle school. So I welcome everyone who's new to Main Street School, and I wish everybody in the entire district a successful start to the school year.
Great. Thank you so much, Joyce. So if we could now, Jay, have Andrea and Liza, please.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back for a wonderful school year. At Dow's Lane, we would like to welcome Monique Anderson, new 3rd grade teacher, Becca Bahar, special ed leave replacement, 2nd grade ICT, Rachel Bushbaum, new building sub, Amanda Calabaletta, library clerk, Guy DeMarco, 1st grade aide, Lauren Dundero, school psychologist, K1.
Good morning, Irvington. I feel honored to introduce Megan Hars, special education teacher leave replacement, Gabrielle Macalintal, building substitute teacher, Gabrielle Macalintal, Kimberly Ross, RTI teacher leave replacement, and joining us from other districts are Natasha Clewell and Marjorie Macchia.
Great. Thank you so much. And to everyone, welcome to our school community. We're lucky to have you on our team and look forward to building our partnership. Please know that we are all here to support you and your success as you guide that of our students. As I said, we are one amazing community, and I would like to welcome some of our key partners to say a few words to wish you luck in the new school year. So first, I would like to invite our mayor, Brian Smith, to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. I hope everyone's enjoying their grab-and-go breakfast this morning. every year I say I really enjoy, this is such a special day for me because I'm a son of an alumnus, I'm an alumnus, I'm a parent of a rising sophomore, now I'm also the parent of a graduate. So I have deep roots and deep connections to the Irvington schools, and every year I'm more proud of being associated with the Irvington schools and being a Bulldog. Of course, this year is unlike any other. I think we found that the importance of school goes way beyond just a learning institution. It's become a vital institution for the entire social and economic well-being of our not just our village, but our nation. And I feel that because of that, the teachers and staff have become, vital frontline workers. And I have an even deeper appreciation for all you do, even though my mom was a teacher and my father-in-law, of course, taught at Irvington for, I think, 1,000 years, Bob Monagle. So, I've always loved Irvington, and now we appreciate you even more. Most years I have kind of a light and breezy, typically I just attack Chris Harrison and everyone laughs, but this year I actually want to get a little bit political and complain about the lack of leadership we've seen at both the federal and state level, which makes it bipartisan. And because of that, early on as a village, we felt some of those effects, but I really feel the schools have had felt the brunt of that lack of leadership and the lack of guidance, clear guidance from the governor's office. And it's left Dr. Harrison, the administration and the Board of Education really scrambling. And I've been unbelievably impressed with how they've handled things in kind of a information vacuum. I really like to tip my hat to Dr. Harrison this year and maybe make up for years of making fun of him during these welcome back remarks. But I've been really, really impressed, balancing thousands of kids and multiple thousands of parents. And sometimes it feels like millions of parents and their concerns, many of them justified, many of them not justified, and looking for, a small district like Irvington to figure out the issues and problems that the rest of the country and our state have been unable to do. As Dr. Harrison said, we'll do this together. I think in March, I think we spoke every day, at least by email, and some of it was just a morbid, update on the number of COVID cases in Irvington. But, our communication has only gotten stronger every year. It's crises like these that bring us together. I agree, and I loved your message of we'll figure this all out together. And unfortunately, a lot of it we'll have to figure out together because we're not getting leadership from the places we often look to. I will kind of end on a hopeful note, though, and that's kind of our goal, to be a welcoming community. And obviously, our school is the largest part of our community, and not even arguably the most important. And I think that some of the social change and social unrest of recent days has put shined a light on those unheard voices that maybe don't feel as welcome as they should. And I know the school and of course the village are doing everything we can to make those anyone who feels unwelcome feel welcome. I think a lot of that is being able to look at ourselves in the mirror very honestly and say, where do we need to improve? And I know the school's done that, the village is doing that. And that gives me a lot of hope, not only for Irvington, but for our nation as well, that we can change. So I would just like to thank all of you. I want you all to remain healthy and safe, and take care of yourselves first, and then you can take care of everyone else. But have a great year under difficult circumstances. It still is important to laugh, of course, and I know that you will give our students the best possible year they could have under very difficult circumstances. Thank you all, and best of luck.
Thank you very much, Brian. And as always, thank you for your support and sparing me the pokes that you usually take, which are
hopefully
always
next
fun.
year it'll be a half hour.
Thank you very much for everything. We'll be waiting for it.
All right, good.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Good. Now I'd like to invite our Board of Education President, Brian Friedman, to say a few words. Brian?
Thank you, Dr. Harrison, and morning, everyone, and welcome back. First, I hope you and your families are healthy and managing the challenges that we are all facing as best as possible. But I'll say that if my kids are any indication, you have a lot of students who are very eager to see you. By the end of last year, my kids said they would never complain about going to school again. Not sure if I believe them on that one, and we'll see how long that lasts. But I will certainly remind them of that if they start complaining about school. And if you see them, you should remind them too. As many of you know also, I am a graduate of Irvington as well. And now with the recent retirement of Miss Sella, I think I can say that there are none of my former teachers still on the faculty. But now, while much has changed since I graduated, many things have not. First, I'm still following Brian Smith, and Ms. Marr is still coaching basketball. Another thing that hasn't changed is that Irvington is still a vibrant learning community, and it is you that make it so special. And maybe it's because I'm a nerd at heart, but I still remember the impact that so many of my teachers had on me. I remember my fourth grade teacher, back when K through 5 was at Dow's Lane, Mr. Phillips, pushing me to write more and develop my research skills with his fun projects. I remember building a model of Fort Sumter out of sugar cubes in middle school social studies. It was certainly nowhere near as good as the models the 8th graders make of DC. And I remember Dr. Thorne, my biology teacher, helping me to get a spot in a lab to try science research at a time when there was no dedicated program to do so in Irvington. And now I'm sure that during this year, that we all know is like no other year before it, you will be creating important memories and connections for your students that they too will fondly recall years after they have moved on from your classroom. Irvington is also much the same small, close-knit community as when I was a student. And again, you are a large part of creating that sense of community. You serve not only as teachers, but as coaches, role models, club advisors, mentors, and sounding boards. And I really think it was those interactions that everyone missed so much in the spring as we were learning remotely. And now a lot has happened in Irvington and the nation over the last several months. And like many others, we too, as a community, are having the necessary and difficult conversations around race and equity, some of which we'll begin today or continue today. You know, we are certainly living in uncharted times. And while as a district, we have done our best to plan for the upcoming year, we know there will be unforeseen issues and challenges that will require everyone, students, faculty, administrators, and even parents, to be flexible thinkers. But please know that the entire board deeply appreciates all of your efforts. And like every year, our focus is on providing the best possible education for all students while keeping everyone in the school community safe and healthy. The board is committed to supporting your work as you continue to provide the excellence in teaching for which this district is rightfully known. Thank you for all you do, and have a great year.
Great, thank you, Brian, and thank you to all of our trustees of the Board of Education, many of whom are watching right now. Thank you for all your support and the dedication that you provide our school district. So I would also now like to introduce our partners at the PTSA, who will be followed by the Education Foundation, and let's all give them a round of applause for their supporting the breakfast today. So while we didn't get to enjoy it out in the quad, in my 9 years in district, this is the first year that it has rained on our opening day. So we perfectly planned a pandemic so we could do this virtually so as not to get wet. But I would like to welcome our partners at the PTSA, Delina and Dipna.
Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes.
We are Delina Cody and the mother of Linnea and Teo, who are entering 8th and 10th grade.
Hi, and I'm Dipna Kenny. I have rising 3rd, 6th, and 9th graders, Connor, Ronan, and Amelia. Usually this is the part where the PTSA presidents talk about grants and programs and what we do in our schools, but we think you already know that. Instead, we wanted to spend our 2 minutes saying thank you to all of you for being here for our children, for changing everything about how you teach, for spending the spring trying to take care of your families while teaching our children, for answering every email, for working all summer, for caring about our kids, and for having the generosity of spirit to raise money for the Bulldog Family Fund through your mask sale.
We're sure that you, like us, have moments where you wonder if you're living in someone else's apocalyptic horror movie. In the middle of March, we told our kids that they might be out of school for 2 whole weeks. And now here we are, 6 months later, living in ways we never could have imagined. What has life been like for our kids since you last saw them? It's been sad, scary at times, and lonely, but it's also been a time of creativity, resilience, and freedom. Cut away from structure, kids have played and drawn pictures, built forts in the woods, gone biking and written stories. Older kids have gotten jobs, taken care of younger kids, daydreamed, exercised, and learned new skills.
My kids, however, spent hours on Xbox and YouTube and ordering DoorDash, but they want to be back in their schools with their friends and teachers because the kids are ready to come back to school whether they think so or not. We know that they will adapt to the new routines because you all have, and they need you, their teachers and counselors, school staff and leaders to help them move into their future. We're so glad our district has been able to come together and create a safe reopening plan. And we thank you for the courage, commitment, and love for our kids that allows you to be here today.
The PTSA is here to support you this year. If you put it on mute, it's better. Please call on us for whatever we can give. Thank you. That's it, we're done. And sorry for the weird feedback. We're actually in the same room. So we're trying to make this not sound so crazy.
Great. Well, Delina, Dimna, thank you so much for all of your support and our appreciation to all members of the PTSA Executive Board and to everyone that supports the work of the PTSA. I would now like to welcome our partners from the IEF, Nirja Patel and Venera Gianetto.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nirja Patel, and I'm the co-president of the Irvington Education Foundation, along with Venera Gianetto. Many of you are familiar with the IEF, its mission, and what we do, but since we have many new teachers to the district, we thought we'd just give a brief overview. The IEF has approximately a 30-member fundraising board of parent volunteers who raise money from the community to fund teacher and student-driven grants. These grants enhance our students' educational experience in and out of the classroom. So in a typical non-COVID year, we support various programs that advance the curriculum, including hands-on field trips and bringing in professionals to the school for creative programs. The IEF also created the Innovation Fund, which is mainly in the high school, and it's to provide the high school students to develop student-led grants and enrichment experiences or community initiatives to benefit their peers and the district. So every year, our board works diligently to raise money in the community through events such as the Spring Fundraiser, as well as the Directed Giving campaign through our annual letter. And each year we encourage teachers to submit new grant ideas as well as recurring grants that have proved successful. Many of our teacher-inspired grants from prior years have become loved staples of our school curriculum. And we know that this scholastic year will be challenging like no other year, and we're here to help and support the teachers and the children in this district. So we would love to hear your creative ideas, and we look forward to working with you all in this coming school year. Again, like the PTSA said, thank you for all that you do and for your time. And feel free to email us with any questions you might have. And good luck with our kiddos this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nirja and Venera, and please extend our appreciation and thanks to all the members of the IEF for the great work that you do on behalf of the district and our children. Now, James Groven. James, would you mind saying a few words? James?
Am I there now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, from the summer that felt like it wasn't. I want to start by thanking the community and the district for being such a strong partner with the IFA this summer. I feel like we're set with a really great labor relationship with the administration and a positive reputation in the community. And these are going to be really important as we navigate what this year is going to look for. Then it's really important that I thank the executive board for all of their hard work and feedback this summer, particularly Amy, Corinne, and Sarah, our vice presidents and chief negotiator, who were pretty much on the phone with me every night while I was making dinner, trying to figure out what we were doing. I'm going to send out a Zoom link for our IFA meeting that's scheduled for 10 o'clock. So please check your personal emails for those. And I'm going to keep it short because I know that we all have a lot to do. I want to just stress that your health and safety, both physical and mental, have to come first this year. And as teachers, sometimes we forget that. We put our students, our communities, our own families first, but you can't do your job as a teacher if you have nothing left to give. And I like to think of it as if you were on an airplane and the oxygen masks came out. Put yours on, catch a breath, and then take care of the people around you that need all of your help, because our kids are going to need our help. So I wish everyone a good year, and I'll see all of the teachers at 10 o'clock for our union meeting.
Great. Thank you, James. And James, I want to thank you and the rest of the executive board for all of your incredible work and partnership throughout the summer. I think there were times when, James, I was speaking to you more regularly than I was my own family. But it's that level of communication and our continued collaboration that is going to keep us afloat, and to make sure that we are caring for one another, and to make sure that we're doing all we can for the students in our care. So James, and to the exec board, thanks so much. So I would like to thank all of our community partners, from the mayor to the Board of Education, PTSA, Ed Foundation, and of course, each of our bargaining units. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for your words of encouragement. Staff, as I wrote in my letter to you last week, as we head back to school this fall, we do so during the most complex and challenging time in recent history. The COVID impacts are ever present in our lives and have changed how we essentially do everything. However, when we turn on the news, we are reminded of other change that is needed. Change that we can affect and improve the lives of our BIPOC students and create a more equitable society. Our work may start small here in Irvington, but through our partnership with the NYU Metro Center and our community, we will make a difference by engaging in necessary learning and reflection. We will all participate in critical professional development on the topics of racism, equity, and inclusion. At the same time, we will participate in a thorough root cause analysis that will explore all that is IUFSD and identify where and how we need to change. This will not be a quick process, but it will be a deliberate and a strategic one where our partnership and commitment is without question critical. We may not be able to erase generations of hate, bigotry, racism, and withheld opportunity, but today we can start the journey to make Irvington and our school community a better, more just and equitable place to live, learn, work, and grow. I ask that you join me in making a commitment to being an agent of change, and be prepared for the hard, uncomfortable conversations that we must have to improve our society and provide a better future for the students in our care. Today, I'm pleased to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. David Kirkland, who is the Executive Director of the NYU Metropolitan Center on Equity and the Transformation of Schools and Professor of English and Urban Education. Dr. Kirkland has also been described as an activist, an educator, cultural critic, and author, a leading national scholar and advocate for educational justice. Dr. Kirkland's transdisciplinary Scholarship explores a variety of equity-related topics: school climate and discipline, school integration and choice, culture and education, vulnerable learners, and intersections among race, gender, and education. Today, Dr. Kirkland will help us to understand the role we all play in the change that is so desperately needed in society. As you process Dr. Kirkland's teachings, please keep in mind that later today, there will be follow-up sessions in each school with some of our other partners from NYU. Now, without further delay, it's an honor to introduce Dr. David Kirkland. David?
Thank you. We looked out, saw streets littered with wind, bodies raptured into homes on lockdown, four walls stared at me and began to whisper. I thought I was alone until I whispered back, they say that hope is a tease that lures you in with promises that don't always come true. I say that hope is often hidden from us. On the other side of darkness where dreams reside, it cannot be found in things that we might seek because we only know the real world when the shades have been lifted from our eyes. Because before COVID, we did not see how Black and brown bodies were being wasted, how sickness and economic deprivation were not new. Eyes would not see what was clearly in front of them until the mats came in, plotting points that we all knew too well, that Black and brown lives have barely mattered under the sun. They say that nothing is new under the sun, but on the other side of the post-COVID, post-protest skies, they say you can hear things that you rarely heard before, like the tanager singing in New York's Central Park, or the receding waves of pollution that flooded our skies. We see now the ways that environmental injustice bumps up against racial injustice, sits alongside economic injustice. I can't sleep some nights because COVID's got me woke as fuck. I can no longer diet in daydreams, convincing myself that remote education is a real thing. It feels like an oxymoron to me. By definition, education can never be remote, as in stranded alone on a lonely island or pushed away like kids do peas or society does Black, brown, and indigenous folk. Put out like trash on Sunday evening, set aside on streets to be removed from sight. While we forget that landfills are real, they call COVID novel, but this ain't new. Same old pains and same old struggles. Pandemics in Black, brown, and indigenous communities are as diasporic as our kinship ties. The only thing novel about COVID is its name and the ways that it makes some folk finally feel and finally surrender to reality. But if they see us, they will see that we are more than just the disproportionate percentages of bodies occupying ICUs. We are also the collective commitment of humanity daring life to respond. We are the club quarantines and IG live DJ battles. We are Monica and Brandy on Versus and the collective consciousness of Zoom chats and the counselors begging teachers to give students time to heal. We are the voices of those crying in the wilderness, baptizing the moment in waters of our grandmother's tears. We are promise keepers, peace prophets, life givers, community healers, wisdom whisperers. We are something that not even COVID can kill, because our lives are more than anguish and disease or the fixed routines that uplift human misery. More than the death tickers that complicate our TV screens, more than the buildings and streets that longed for a pause long before we went on lockdown. Our lives are the quilt work of our ancestors, stitched into air to make eternity. We join them in this moment. And in this moment to come, knowing that though we may be sitting alone, we are not lonely. So we raise our voices in unison, triumphantly saying, though weeping may endure for a night, joy comes on the other side of our mourning. Good morning, everybody. I want to thank you all for inviting me to this conversation today. Particularly, thank you, Dr. Harrison, for your commitment to moving us forward. I want to thank my colleagues from the NYU Metro Center, Maria and Reed, who will be joining you all today. I also want to thank each of you, because without you, there would be no event. Thank you for all that you do and will do. You're not only the change, you are the hope. Again, I'm David E. Kirkland, the Executive Director of the NYU Metro Center and Vice Dean for Equity, Belonging, and Community Action in the Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Human Development. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I do want to acknowledge that I'm standing on Lenape land. I do this in recognition to the land, but also as a reminder that struggles for justice continue. We are all on occupied land. So we must all be willing to engage a project of remembrance while we also engage the revolutionary work of recovery, which is the opposite of cultural deletion and social erasure. So today I remember. With that said, I think it would be an understatement to say that we are living through life-changing and challenging times. We're facing multiple pandemics. There is the health crisis precipitated by COVID. There's the social crisis reignited by the murders of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, and the recent shooting of Jacob Blake. There's also the economic crisis, legislated by a series of poor decisions from our political leadership. But through it all, we are remaining diligent, finding ways to hold each other up and hold things together. As some of you may know, I've been blessed to partner with communities and schools like Irvington, joining the fight to advance equity in education and beyond it. And though we fight to advance equity, which is a principle of fairness based on the recognition that all of our students are different and come to their education with different needs, we also fight to end the systemic racism and white supremacy that make advancing equity in our schools impossible. This is the brave conversation that we must have. That as our boots beat the ground to pay homage to the blood spilt from the violence of systemic racial oppression, I believe that we will best serve our children by standing in resistance to systems, ideological and otherwise, hewn from the bedrock of bigotry. So I asked this morning, what does it mean when your job is to enforce a law or curriculum, when that law or curriculum is explicitly racist? If this is the case, and you do your job and you do your job well, it means that you enforce, even reinforce racism. Today I want to ask, how might we change our job descriptions? How might we, in a post-COVID education world, make education anti-racist, culturally responsive and sustaining, and radically reimagined for all of our students? How do we call for new institutions that, instead of murdering our bodies and our souls, love us? How do we call for new institutions that truly uphold justice? Because, as Cornel West said, justice is what love looks like in public. And let us not think what's happening in the streets across our country has nothing to do with us. Before Derek Chauvin dug his knee into George Floyd's neck, a teacher in the South Bronx, New York City, stood on the back of a young Black boy so that he could know what slavery felt like. And though we might want to argue that in education we have not fired one shot that claimed innocent life, we cannot deny the many ways in which we have helped load the guns of racial animus. We are in the midst of multiple pandemics. And I'm not just talking about COVID. I'm talking about the ways in which we take as normal the idea that structural needs bearing upon the necks of our children, who find themselves at the bottom of every desirable statistical category that we collect, and at the top of every least desirable one, is not about us. The diseases here are the pandemics of amnesia, indifference, and apathy. We might find a cure in our questioning, turning the lens of scrutiny on ourselves instead of others by asking, how do we center care in all that we do? How do we become more than just allies, but co-conspirators in the revolutionary work of education? Answering these questions will raise other ones, such as, what should we be doing now in education to improve it later? Because as hospitals exist to heal the sickness of our bodies, our schools, our classrooms in Irvington must become the places that we go to, that our children go to heal the sicknesses of our souls. In our work moving forward, we have to center students more. Yes, the very young people who lean on us in spite of their circumstances, who look to us for care and safety. They look to our collective imaginations and powerful wills to invent a world that deserves them. Because this is what I know. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. I also know that when we look at education, we must stare at a series of realities that should make each of us uncomfortable. That in our nation, education is a tale of disparities. So I thank Dr. Harrison for inviting this conversation today, right here, right now. Why? Because vulnerable children in our nation, in our cities, places like Irvington, are suffering. Inequity is a condition of their lives. Racism is real, and it intersects with other social realities such as gender and language bias, housing instabilities and food insecurities, age and ability hierarchies, economic oppressions. Even though we know what this moment has shown us, what we perhaps already knew, that our schools are not currently designed to favor the dispossessed and the maligned. That even before we were forced to stare at the digital divide, finally understanding that the material possession of technology isn't evenly distributed across our country, before we acknowledge that some kids would struggle, economically less advantaged kids, Black, brown, and indigenous kids, multilingual learner kids, kids with IEPs and 504 plans. In this moment of Black Lives Matter and COVID-19, we are being taught that a new world is indeed possible. It is true that various narratives of disparity shape how we understand education. This is why we march. This is why so many of us in education have joined countless others in the streets, because of our poor, our Black, our brown, our indigenous youth are disproportionately suspended, placed in a special education more, graduate at lower rates, perform less well on standardized tests, etc. You know the story. It's true that these disparities increase at intersections of linguistic difference, ability difference, gender difference, and at the apex of other vulnerabilities, as I've said. Today, I'm not going to talk about this because none of it is novel. None of it is new. Here's what's new, though. Our goals in response to COVID-19 and our current realities must be new and renewed. They must be shaped out of not what the disease has taken from us, but out of what it has given us. In the past few weeks, I've had the incredible opportunity to speak with school leaders and teachers and parents and students from around the country. Each of them has asked me for advice on how to move education forward. My advice has been simple, and it is the advice that I'd like to share with you this morning. To move forward, we must slow down. This is the question, not how to continue education as we know it, but what must we be doing in this incredibly crucial intermission as we plot our return in order to improve education. This is it. This is what we do. First, we listen. And there are many ways to listen. Psychologist, gender theorist, and friend Niobe Way speaks of what she calls the science of human connection, which is beginning to help us to understand the root systems plaguing our culture and our social communities. Niobe speaks of what she calls the crisis of connection. The idea that so many of us, so many of our ideas, our systems, our fundamental human practice is shaped by disconnection. This is what structural racism is. It speaks to how systems are disconnected from the very people they serve on the fundamental basis of race. This is what culturally irrelevant curriculum is. It is curriculum disconnected from the lives of some of our students. This disconnection shapes a far more powerful narrative of success and failure than anything else in education. But worse, it leads to consequences of structural and emotional violence that turns into structural forms of trauma and the kinds of threats that make education a hostile site for many of our children. So how do we connect? We listen thickly. And we listen thickly by doing equity audits and by using other instruments that allow us to hear from people so that we might get crucial information about them. Because how do you teach someone you don't know? We have to use this time to hold listening sessions, conduct empathy interviews with students, conduct focus group conversations with parents. We must get a sense of their experiences and their wisdom, because when we do, they tell us how to teach them. We listen by dreaming up the protocols and systems that give us time to hear, time to learn from those who are most implicated by the decisions that we make. I know that this isn't the Western way, which is in so many ways concerned with the opposite of stopping and listening. But one of the most important lessons that we are learning with COVID is this, that we don't have all the answers. That life and death quite literally depend on our ability to chart new courses. So after we listen, we must dare to partner. In doing so, we must resist the impulse to make decisions alone. Let's instead enlist the support of those parents and those students with whom we've listened. Because those who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. The other important lesson that COVID has taught us is that we're in this together. Ubuntu. I am because we are. The decisions that I make affect you, and the ones that you make affect me. This is the big picture. If we are to build brighter and bolder opportunities for our children on the other side of pandemics and protests, if we are to find shade amidst the intense heat of the moment, we must grab hands, put all of our questions on the table, and do as James Baldwin has so courageously and boldly told us, to search deeply within answers for the questions they conceal. And once we get to the right questions together, we'll be closer to getting to the right answers together. Perhaps the biggest issue with the old system, should I say the current system, is that it was not designed for each of us, by all of us. The current system works well for those who design it, but it works horribly for those of us it was imposed upon. And because of this, we are hurting. So the third thing that we must do is collectively act. And the first part of collective action is understanding how to curate an experience that starts with an acknowledgement that something has happened and indeed has always been happening to our most vulnerable young people. The system is a historical and social artifact. It functions as its designers intended, shaped by the weaker impulses of those designers. It clings to the dark cosmetics of social hierarchy, tainted by sexism, racism, language oppression, economic oppression, and other social, economic, cultural, and political forces of violence, which are real. Each of these has had historical consequences that manifest regularly in our schools and magnify over time. They continue to this day. The acknowledgement of this truth-telling that I'm talking about, means that the first step of our collective action must be about locating the wounds so that we can focus on healing them. But not just the broken body of those of us who have suffered, but also healing the broken souls of our school systems. How can we turn the lens of trauma-informed care outward and onto our systems? How can we see where and when our systems are sick and hurting our children? To be sure, our children aren't broken, but too often our systems are. From an anti-racist perspective, the action required right now is about healing the global pandemic that afflicts our world with bias, infecting countless institutions with the disease of sight that make these institutions incapable of seeing certain bodies as valued or valuable or even human. Healing the system will take time. So when we go back to our physical classrooms, it must be okay if we don't go straight into the curriculum, at least not until week 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's move at the speed of trust. Because the time spent healing ourselves and our students, building relationships with them, interpersonal wealth will take us farther than just pressing forward while sick. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. As I've said before, we have to sit with the question, what does it mean to go together? I did a study of classrooms recently. One set of classrooms jumped into the curriculum on day one without purposing healing, without ensuring all students were equally ready to go. They privilege Bloom, you know, Bloom's taxonomy, or questions of what we teach over questions of who we teach. Another set of classrooms took time to purpose healing, to focus on and center students and their well-being, to collectively address the social and emotional aspects of learning before going into the curriculum, so that all students were ready to go. They privilege Maslow, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or questions of who we teach before questions of what we teach. The classrooms that paused at the beginning ended up going farther than the ones that launched forward on day one. Not only did these classrooms that paused end up covering more curriculum, the students did better. Not only that, the students felt better. You see, this is about experience. Maslow before Bloom. This is about how we curate better experiences for our students. Because we don't teach English or science or social studies or math. We teach students English. We teach students science. We teach students social studies. We teach students math. And at the center of these constructions are students. And because of them and for them, we don't want to go back to normal. We want things to improve. And part of that improvement will mean envisioning a system or a set of environments that are welcoming and affirming, where the least desired or redundant components from the curriculum are omitted. It will mean dealing with the idea that school is a place of punishment for some of our students, and that this punitive narrative is usually based in some of our most dangerous and biased logics. How can we help all students, particularly our most vulnerable students, experience schooling as a site of joy? Because joy is one of the basics of learning. I'm an avid reader and a prolific writer. I read about 50 plus books a year and countless other things like research articles. I've published over 130 things, including 5 books, working on 2 books now that will be published in November. But before I was an avid reader or prolific writer, I had a chance to allow the lip of letters to dangle from my tongue. I had a chance to play with words, dance with them, hear them sing. The basics of education are things like pleasure, play, curiosity, creativity, and when children are hurting, there are things like healing and restoration and care. And let's not shortchange joy, because Foucault said that learning is erotic. Audre Lorde suggests that the erotic can be used as a source of power, both to motivate and to entice, to transmit, connect, and radically transform. However, too often schooling, for so many of our children, is constructed as a site of what Michael Dumas has called suffering. Again, how might we instead imagine schooling as a system or set of environments that center joy, where one of the key outcomes of engagement, of interaction, of learning itself is pleasure? A joy-based reimagining of education will involve more human-to-human interaction, collaborative learning, less or no homework, very few assessments that are continuous in nature, and group assessments that feel less burdensome. A joy-based reimagining of schooling is one where we replicate spaces that center our students and let go of anything that continues to marginalize, exclude, and harm them. Thank you all again for everything that you do and will do. You're not only the change, you're the hope. Thank you.
Wow. Dr. Kirkland, thank you. That was truly incredible. And I have to say, as sitting here reflecting on that powerful message, there's a couple items that really stood out with me and things that I jotted as he spoke. The idea of moving at the speed of trust is something that we should all reflect upon and think about what it means to build those relationships and to have the license to take that time to foster the necessary relationships with our students and their parents, and to make those interpersonal connections that are necessary to develop our understandings of what individual needs are. And similar to things that I had said earlier this morning, that the one quote that Dr. Kirkland stated, if we want to go fast, go at it alone. But that idea of something being sustainable, something being powerful, something that's going to move and to do it well, that we have to do that work together. So as we walk away from this morning's program, please take Dr. Kirkland's words, his passion, as an inspiration for us all as we undertake this ethical and moral charge and build our collective capacity to lead the change that is necessary for the benefits of all of our students, our BIPOC students, our Black students, our brown students, to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to achieve their very best here in Irvington. I want to thank you for everything that you've done today, the passion that you bring to work with you, the passion that you have for children and education, and let it loose in our classroom, whether it's physically or virtually, and let the kids know that you love them, show them that you care. And as Dr. Kirkland indicated, the learning will come and our students will succeed. So as we move on and to the rest of our agenda today and the rest of this week, please, let's reflect on these words. Let's reflect on the experiences that we've shared up into this time, and let's use that knowledge, use these experiences to leverage what we can do for children. So thank you for everything. Best of luck this school year. I know it's going to be tough, but there isn't a better group of educators, professionals around that can do it better than you. So thank you. Thank you for everything that you're going to do, and have an excellent day. IFA will meet, as James indicated. I know CSEA clerical unit is also going to be meeting, and then we will pick up building and department level schedules at 10:30. Thank you all. Have a great day.